The year was 2847, and humanity had changed in ways that their ancestors could never have imagined. They had spread across 3 star systems, building homes on worlds that once seemed impossible to reach. Cities floated in the clouds of gas giants. Mining stations dug deep into frozen moons. Children were born who had never seen Earth, who knew only the cold beauty of distant stars. Yet for all their progress, for all their ships and stations and colonies, humans had found nothing else alive in the universe. No alien cities. No strange creatures. No voices calling back when they sent messages into the void. The galaxy was vast and beautiful and terribly empty. Commander Lisa Grant had spent 20 years searching for something. Anything that would prove they were not alone. She was 42 years old now, her dark hair showing streaks of gray. Her eyes carrying the tired look of someone who had seen too much emptiness. She commanded the exploration vessel Starward Hope, a ship designed to go further than any human had gone before. On this particular night, if night had any meaning in the endless dark of space, Lisa stood on the bridge watching the stars drift past. The ship was 3 months into a survey mission, mapping systems that had only been studied by long-range telescopes. So far, they had found rocks, ice, gas, nothing that breathed or thought or dreamed. Lieutenant Kevin Park sat at his console nearby. He was young, maybe 25, with the eager energy that Lisa remembered having once, long ago. His fingers moved across holographic displays, running the same scans they had run 1,000 times before. Then he stopped. His hands froze above the console. His eyes went wide. "Commander," he said, and there was something in his voice that made Lisa turn immediately. "I'm picking up something strange." Lisa crossed the bridge in 3 quick steps. "What kind of strange?" "A signal. Coming from the Kepler 442 system." Kevin pulled up the data, projecting it into the air between them. "It's not random. It's structured, repeating, like someone is trying to say something." Lisa felt her heart begin to beat faster, though she kept her face calm. She had heard false alarms before. Pulsars that seemed like messages. Geological activity that mimicked communication. The universe was full of things that looked meaningful, but were not. "Source?" she asked. "The 4th planet. Kepler 442b." Kevin shook his head slowly. "But that doesn't make sense. Our probes surveyed that world 50 years ago. They said it was barren. Dead rock, thin atmosphere, nothing interesting." "Probes can be wrong. Not that wrong, Commander." Lisa studied the signal data. It was definitely artificial. No natural process could create such precise patterns. Someone, or something, had made this. And they had made it to be found. She called a meeting of the entire crew. They gathered in the briefing room. 12 people who had signed up for a life of exploration, knowing they might never find anything worth exploring. Dr. Claire? Bennett was among them. A woman of 50 with silver hair and gentle eyes. She was the ship's xenobiologist, a scientist who studied alien life forms that, till this moment, had only existed in theory. Claire's hands shook as she reviewed the data. Lisa had never seen her show such emotion. "This is real," Claire whispered. "After all these years, after all the searching, this is actually real." "We don't know that yet," said Daniel Cruz, the security officer. He was a big man with careful eyes, trained to be suspicious of everything. "It could be a natural phenomenon we haven't encountered before. It could be a trap. A trap set by whom?" Claire asked. "We've never found anyone out there to set traps that we know of." Lisa let them argue for a few minutes before raising her hand for silence. "We're going to investigate. That's what we're here for. But we're going to be careful. We'll approach slowly, scan everything, and make no assumptions." The Starward Hope changed course. It took them 2 weeks to reach Kepler 442b. 2 weeks of growing tension and excitement. Kevin spent every waking hour analyzing the signal, trying to decode it. Claire prepared her equipment for first contact with an alien species. Daniel ran combat drills, just in case. Lisa barely slept. She spent her nights staring at the approaching planet, a gray-brown sphere growing larger in the view screen. 50 years ago, probes had looked at this world and seen nothing. What had they missed? What was down there, calling out to anyone who would listen? As they entered orbit, their instruments detected something impossible. "There's a hollow space beneath the surface," Kevin reported, his voice breaking slightly. "A sphere almost 3 kilometers across. It's artificial. Someone built it." "How deep?" Lisa asked. "About 200 meters down. There's a tunnel leading to it from the surface." "Commander, the signal is coming from inside that sphere." Claire grabbed Lisa's arm, her fingers tight with excitement. "It's a structure. Someone built a structure and then buried it underground and then sent out a signal so that someone would find it. This is deliberate. This is intentional. Someone wanted to be discovered, or something," Daniel muttered darkly. Lisa made her decision. "We're going down. Claire, Kevin, Daniel, you're with me. Everyone else stays on the ship. If anything goes wrong, you leave. You take what we've learned back to human space. Understood?" No one argued. The shuttle descended through thin clouds of carbon dioxide. Touching down on a plain of gray stone near the tunnel entrance, Lisa was the first to step outside, her boots crunching on alien rock. The planet's sun hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows across a landscape that had never known life, except something had been here. Something had dug a tunnel into the ground, perfectly circular, large enough for their entire team to walk through without crouching. "The walls are smooth," Kevin said, running his hand along the stone. "No tool marks. It's like the rock was melted and then reformed, or grown," Claire added. "Like a shell around a living thing." They walked downward. The tunnel curved gently, spiraling into the depths. The air grew warmer. Soft light began to glow from the walls themselves, illuminating their path without any visible source. Lisa felt a strange sensation growing in her chest. It was not fear, though she knew she should be afraid. It was something closer to recognition, as if she were walking towards something that had been waiting for her, specifically her. For a very long time, the tunnel opened into the sphere. Lisa stopped at the threshold, her breath catching in her throat. Behind her, she heard Claire begin to cry softly. Kevin whispered something that might have been a prayer. Before them stretched a garden. Trees with silver bark rose toward, a ceiling that showed a sky full of unfamiliar stars. Flowers bloomed in colors that human eyes had never evolved to see. Streams of crystal-clear water flowed in impossible directions, climbing hills and falling upward. The air smelled of honey and rain and something ancient, something that predated humanity by millions of years. Someone had built this. Someone had maintained it, kept it alive, waiting here in the dark beneath a dead world, and now that someone wanted to meet them, Lisa took a deep breath and stepped into the garden. The garden was impossible. Lisa knew this with the certainty of someone who had spent her entire adult life studying the universe and its laws. Nothing like this should exist. Nothing could exist underground on a dead planet with no power source. No life support, no explanation. Yet here it was. Stretching before her like a dream made solid, she took careful steps along a path of white stone, her team following close behind. The trees towered above them, their silver bark reflecting the soft golden light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Strange fruits hung from their branches, glowing faintly with colors that shifted when she looked directly at them. "I'm reading organic matter," Kevin said, his scanner held out before him like a weapon. "Everything here is alive. The trees, the flowers, even the grass under our feet. But the cellular structure doesn't match anything in our databases. This isn't carbon-based life. I don't even know what it's based on." Claire knelt beside a flower that pulsed gently, like a slow heartbeat. Her eyes were wet with tears she had not bothered to wipe away. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "In all my years of searching, I never imagined anything this beautiful." Daniel kept his hand on his sidearm, his eyes scanning the garden for threats. "Beautiful things can still be dangerous," he said. "We need to stay focused. Find the source of that signal and figure out what we're dealing with." Lisa nodded, though part of her wanted to simply sit down on the soft grass and absorb the wonder around her. How many humans had dreamed of this moment? How many had spent their lives hoping to find evidence that the universe contained something more than rocks and ice and empty space? They walked deeper into the garden. The path wound between stands of trees and across bridges over streams that defied gravity. Small creatures watched them from the undergrowth, things with too many eyes and bodies like crystalline flowers. They did not seem afraid. They seemed curious. "The signal is coming from that direction," Kevin said, pointing toward the center of the garden there. Rising above the silver trees was a structure. It looked like a temple built from stone that glowed with inner light. Tall pillars supported a domed roof. Steps led up to massive doors carved with symbols that seemed to move when Lisa tried to focus on them. As they approached, the signal changed. What had been electronic pulses transformed into something else. Something that sounded almost like a voice, though the words were in no language Lisa had ever heard. "It knows we're here," Claire said softly. They climbed the steps. The doors were 3 times Lisa's height, made of material that looked like white marble but felt warm under her touch. She pushed, and they swung open silently. The interior of the temple was a single vast chamber. Light fell from the domed ceiling in beams that moved slowly, like searchlights across a dark sea. And at the center, floating in a column of pale blue energy, was a figure. Lisa's breath stopped in her chest. The figure was humanoid, but not human. Its skin was smooth and white, like fine porcelain. Its limbs were long and slender. Its face was serene, almost peaceful, eyes closed as if in deep sleep. It wore no clothing, but its body seemed somehow modest, like a statue rather than a living being, around the floating figure. Holographic symbols danced in complex patterns. They responded to the team's presence, shifting and reforming as if trying to communicate. "Is it alive?" Daniel asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Claire approached the column of light, her scanner extended. "Yes. Life signs are faint, but present. It's in some kind of stasis. Has been for a very long time, based on these readings." "How long?" Lisa asked. Claire checked her scanner twice before answering. "Millions of years. Maybe tens of millions. Commander, this being has been sleeping here since before humans existed." Lisa felt the weight of that number settle onto her shoulders. When this creature had closed its eyes, Earth had been a planet of dinosaurs and primitive mammals. Humanity was not even a dream. Yet somehow, impossibly, it had created this garden and filled it with life and sent out a signal that humans would won. Day here, the figure's eyes opened. They were deep violet. Those eyes, and they contained depths that Lisa could not comprehend. The being looked at her, and Lisa had the sudden certainty that it was seeing everything she was, her memories, her hopes, her fears, the long years of searching for something to believe in. Then it smiled. The voice that filled the chamber was not sound. It was thought pressed directly into their minds, carrying meaning without words. Lisa understood it perfectly, though she could not have repeated what was said. "Oh, you've come. After so long, someone has finally come." Lisa stepped forward, her legs unsteady. "Who are you?" "I am the last of my kind. In your language, the closest word would be keeper. I was chosen to wait, to preserve what we knew, to pass it on to whoever might follow." "Follow?" Kevin asked, his voice shaking. "Follow what? Where did your people go?" The keeper's smile faded. Sorrow filled her violet eyes, ancient and deep. "We did not go. We were erased. Our worlds, our cities, our art and music and dreams, all of it consumed by the darkness that moves between the stars." A chill ran down Lisa's spine. What darkness? The keeper raised one slender hand. The holographic symbols around her shifted, forming images that made Lisa's blood run cold. She saw worlds burning, ships torn apart like paper in a storm. Billions of beings screaming as something vast and terrible descended upon them. The images were not recordings. They were memories, pulled directly from the keeper's mind and shared with her visitors. "We called it the Silence," the keeper explained. "It is older than our species. Older than most stars. It moves through the galaxy, watching, waiting, When a civilization grows bright enough to attract its attention, it comes. And then that civilization is no more. Claire had gone pale. You're saying something hunts intelligent life? Something destroys entire species. Not hunts, maintains. The silence believes it serves a purpose. It keeps the galaxy in what it considers balance. Too many voices and the harmony is disrupted. So it silences the loudest. Daniel's hand tightened on his weapon, though Lisa knew it would be useless against what the Keeper described. If this thing is so powerful, how are you still here? I am hidden. This garden is shielded, invisible to the silence's senses. For millions of years I have slept here, preserving what remains of my people, waiting for someone new to rise. Someone who might succeed where we failed. Lisa felt a terrible understanding forming in her mind. You're saying this silence will come for us. For humanity. The Keeper's violet eyes met hers. You have spread across your stars. You have built great ships and cities. You shine brightly now, bright enough to be noticed. The silence will find you. It may already be watching. Then we need to hide, Kevin said desperately. Like you did. We need to build shelters, go dark, stop expanding. That is what we tried. We hid. We bargained. We fled to the darkest corners of the galaxy. It did not matter. The silence is patient. It found us. It found all of us. Lisa stood in silence, the weight of the universe pressing down on her. She thought of the colonies. Millions of human beings going about their lives without any idea that something ancient and terrible was watching them. She thought of children being born on distant worlds. Children who might never grow old because the silence was coming. Then she straightened her shoulders. You said we might succeed where you failed. Why? What makes you think humans are any different? The Keeper's smile returned, but it was different now. There was hope in it, and something that looked almost like pride. Because I have watched you. Through my machines, through my sensors scattered across the galaxy, I have observed your species for thousands of years. You are not like us. You do not accept defeat. When faced with extinction, you do not surrender. You fight. You rage against the darkness. You refuse to go quietly. She extended her hand toward Lisa. That is why I waited. That is why I chose to give my knowledge to your kind. Because if anyone can stand against the silence, it will be humanity. Lisa looked at that offered hand. Pale and ancient and carrying the weight of a dead civilization. Then she reached out and took it. The moment Lisa's fingers touched the Keeper's hand, the world changed. Light exploded through her mind. She saw stars being born and dying. She saw civilizations rise from the mud of countless worlds, reaching toward the heavens with hope and wonder. She saw them fall, one by one, consumed by something vast and dark that moved between the stars like a shadow with teeth. And she saw the Keeper's people, tall and graceful, with skin like moonlight and eyes full of wisdom. They had built cities that floated on clouds of light. They had created art that sang and danced and changed with the emotions of those who viewed it. They had loved and dreamed and reached for the infinite. Now they were gone. All of them. Billions of souls erased as if they had never existed. Lisa gasped and pulled her hand away. She was trembling, sweat running down her face, her heart pounding like a drum. The vision had lasted only seconds, but it had contained millennia of memory. I am sorry, the Keeper said gently. I forget how fragile younger minds can be, but you needed to understand. You needed to see what you were facing. I understand, Lisa whispered, and she did. The silence was not simply a threat. It was an extinction event walking. It was the reason the galaxy seemed so empty. Every civilization that had ever shone bright, enough had been snuffed out like a candle in a hurricane. Claire helped Lisa steady herself. Commander, are you all right? No, but I will be. Lisa took a deep breath and faced the Keeper again. You said you have knowledge? Things that could help us. I need to see everything. The Keeper nodded. The holographic symbols around her shifted, forming images and diagrams and data streams that flowed too fast for human eyes to follow. I will give you what remains of my people's wisdom. Technology beyond your current understanding. Maps of the galaxy showing resources you have not yet discovered. And most importantly, the locations of other gardens like this one. Kevin's eyes went wide. There are more? Many more. Before the end, we scattered our legacy across the stars. Some were found and destroyed. Others remain hidden, waiting for someone to claim them. Each garden contains knowledge, tools, things that might give you a chance against what is coming. Daniel had been silent, his face hard as stone. Now he spoke. What about weapons? Do you have anything that can actually fight this silence? The keeper's expression grew sad. We tried to build weapons. We constructed ships that could tear planets apart. We created bombs that could ignite stars. None of it mattered. The silence is not a thing that can be shot or bombed. It is something older, something that exists in the spaces between reality. Our weapons were like throwing stones at the ocean.
Oh.
Then how are we supposed to fight it? Daniel demanded. I do not know. That is the truth I must give you alongside the hope. My people were scientists, artists, philosophers. We were not warriors. When the silence came, we did not know how to resist. We argued among ourselves, even as our worlds burned. We broke apart when we should have stood together. The keeper floated down from her column of light, her feet touching the temple floor for what might have been the first time in millions of years. She moved slowly, carefully, like someone learning to walk again. Humanity is different. I have watched you face impossible odds and survive. I have seen you fight wars that should have destroyed you and emerge stronger. You have something my people lacked. A stubbornness, a refusal to accept defeat that burns in your very souls. She reached out and touched Lisa's face, her fingers cooled against human skin. That is why I believe in you. Not because I know you will win. I do not know that. But because I know you will fight. And perhaps, just perhaps, that will be enough. The days that followed were unlike anything Lisa had experienced. The keeper shared everything she had, pouring data into their systems faster than they could process it. Kevin worked around the clock, trying to organize the flood of information. Claire studied the biological secrets of the garden, learning how the keeper's people had created life from nothing. Daniel analyzed what little they knew about the silence. Searching for any weakness he could find, Lisa spent her time with the keeper, talking for hours about the history of a species that no longer existed. Tell me about them, Lisa asked one evening, sitting beside a stream that flowed upward like a reversed waterfall. Your people. What were they like? The keeper smiled, her violet eyes distant with memory. We were dreamers. We believed that the universe was a garden, and our purpose was to tend it. We spread life to dead worlds. We taught younger species how to reach for the stars. We thought that by filling the galaxy with voices, we could chase away the darkness. What happened? The silence noticed. It came for our youngest first, the species we had helped to rise. We watched them die one by one, and we were too proud to believe we could be next. By the time we understood the truth, it was too late. Lisa was quiet for a moment. How do you not hate us? We're doing the same things you did. Spreading, growing, shining brighter every year. Hate you. The keeper seemed genuinely confused by the question. You are alive. You carry the possibility of a future. That is the most precious thing in the universe. How could I hate you for being what I once was? She turned to look at Lisa directly. Besides, you are not doing the same things we did. You ask questions we never thought to ask. You consider possibilities we dismissed. Already your people are different from how we were. Perhaps different enough to survive. The starward Hope stayed at the garden for 3 weeks, gathering everything the keeper could provide. When the time came to leave, Lisa found herself reluctant to go. This place, impossible as it was, had become something like home. The keeper had become something like a friend. Will you come with us? Lisa asked on their final day. You've been alone for so long. You could see what humanity has built. You could help us prepare. The keeper shook her head slowly. My place is here. This garden needs me, and I need it. We are bound together, the last remains of a dead civilization. But you'll be alone again. I have been alone for millions of years. A few more will not matter. The keeper reached out, and took Lisa's hands in hers. "What matters is what you do with what I have given you. Spread the knowledge. Find the other gardens. And when the silence comes, do not make our mistakes. Do not argue and divide. Stand together. All of humanity is one, and fight." Lisa felt tears running down her cheeks. She had not cried in years, not since she was a young officer, watching her first ship be destroyed by a mining accident. But something about this moment broke through her defenses. "We will remember you," she promised. "Whatever happens, we will remember. That is all I ask. That is all any of us can ask when we are gone. To be remembered. To have mattered even a little in the great story of the universe." The Keeper embraced her then, the first physical embrace she had shared with another being in longer than human history. And Lisa felt something transfer between them, a spark of hope that had survived the death of worlds. Then she walked back to her ship, carrying the weight of the future on her shoulders. The journey back to human space took 6 weeks. 6 weeks of silence and preparation and fear. Lisa spent most of that time alone in her quarters, reviewing the data the Keeper had given them. The more she learned, the more the weight of responsibility pressed down on her. This was not just a discovery. This was a warning. A death sentence, perhaps. For everything humanity had built, the Keeper's archives contained recordings of the silence at work. Lisa forced herself to watch them, even though each one left her shaking and sick. She saw beautiful cities turn to ash in seconds. She saw ships that could travel between stars torn apart like paper. She saw billions of beings, some almost human in appearance, and others utterly alien, screaming as something vast and dark descended upon them, and she saw the pattern. The silence did not attack randomly. It waited. It watched. When a civilization reached a certain point of development, when they had spread far enough and grown bright enough, then it struck, fast, overwhelming, complete. Humanity was approaching that point. Perhaps it already passed it. Kevin came to her quarters one night, his face pale and drawn. He had been analyzing the astronomical data, tracking the movements of the silence across millions of years. "I found something," he said, his voice flat with exhaustion. "The silence follows a pattern. It moves through the galaxy in a spiral, clearing each region before moving to the next. Based on its trajectory, it should reach our part of space in approximately 200 years. 200 years, Lisa repeated. It sounded like a long time. It was not. Humanity had existed for over 200,000 years. What was 2 more centuries against that? There's more. Kevin pulled up a star map, covered in red markers. These are the locations of civilizations the silence has destroyed in the past 10 million years. There are thousands of them, Commander. Thousands of species that rose and fell without ever knowing we existed. The galaxy isn't empty because life is rare. It's empty because life keeps getting erased. Lisa stared at the map. So many red markers. So many voices silenced. And somewhere out there, moving slowly but inevitably toward human space, was the thing that had silenced them all. "We need to tell people," she said. "We need to warn them." "How?" Kevin asked. "How do you tell billions of people that something is coming to kill them all? That everything they've built, everything they've dreamed of, might be wiped out in 200 years? With the truth, it's all we have." They arrived at Earth 3 weeks later. Lisa requested an immediate audience with the Unified Council, the governing body that represented all of human space. She was granted it. Though she could tell from the faces of the officials who met her shuttle that they expected nothing more than a routine exploration. Report she gave them something much worse. The council chamber was vast, filled with representatives from every colony, every station, every corner of human civilization. Lisa stood at the center and told them everything. She showed them the recordings. She shared the data. She explained what the silence was, and what it did, and how long they had before it arrived. When she finished, there was silence, then shouting, then chaos. Some refused to believe her. They called her mad, delusional, a victim of alien manipulation. Others believed her, but saw no hope in fighting. They argued for hiding, for going dark, for abandoning their colonies and fleeing to the edges of the galaxy, where the silence might not find them. Lisa let them argue. She understood their fear. She had felt it herself. In those long nights aboard the Starward Hope, when she had wondered if there was any point in continuing, then she raised her hand, and somehow impossibly they fell quiet. "I have stood where no human has stood before," she said, her voice carrying across the vast chamber. "I have spoken with a being who watched her entire species die, and she chose to believe in us. She chose to give us her knowledge, her hope, everything that remained of her people, because she believed we could do what they could not." She paused, looking around at the faces watching her. "The keeper told me something before I left. She said that her people were wise and beautiful and kind. But when the darkness came, they broke apart. They argued and blamed each other and fled in 1,000 different directions, and that is why they died. Not because the silence was too strong, because they were not strong enough to stand together." Lisa straightened her shoulders. "We have 200 years. That is not much time, but it is not nothing either. We can use it. We can find the other gardens, claim the technology they hold. We can build defenses, weapons, things we cannot even imagine yet. We can prepare, but only if we do it together. Only if every human, on every world, in every corner of space, works toward the same goal. If we divide, if we fight among ourselves, if we waste our time on petty conflicts and old grudges, then we have already lost." She looked directly at the council leaders. "The most powerful people in human civilization, I am asking you to make a choice. Not for yourselves, but for your children and their children and every generation that will come after. Do we hide and hope the darkness passes us by? Do we give up before we have even tried? Or do we stand together, all of humanity as one, and fight for our right to exist?" The chamber was silent. Then Claire stepped forward from the crowd. She had been standing in the back, watching, waiting. Now she moved to Lisa's side and took her hand. "I believe her," Claire said simply. "I was there. I saw the garden. I spoke with the keeper. Everything she has told you is true, and everything she is asking is necessary." Kevin joined them. Then Daniel. Then others, people Lisa had never met, stepping forward one by one to stand with her. The council leader, an old man named Samuel Gray, with eyes that had seen too many years of politics, watched this display for a long moment. Then he rose from his seat. 200 years, he said slowly. "My grandmother was born 200 years ago. It seems like ancient history now, but she lived to see ships leave for other stars. She lived to see humanity become something greater than it had ever been." He walked down from his platform to stand before Lisa. "I will not be alive when the silence comes. Neither will most of us in this chamber. But our descendants will be, and they deserve a chance to fight." He extended his hand. "You have the Council's support, Commander Grant. Whatever resources you need, whatever authority you require, it is yours. Tell us what to do, and we will do it." Lisa felt tears threatening again, but she pushed them down. There would be time for emotion later. Now there was work to be done. "First," she said, "we find the other gardens." 50 years passed. Lisa Grant was 92 years old now. Kept alive by medical technology that the Keeper had shared with humanity, her hair had gone completely white, and her face was lined with the marks of decades spent fighting for the survival of her species. But her eyes were still sharp, still burning with the same determination that had carried her through the garden and back. The world had changed around her in ways she could barely comprehend. Claire had established the Garden Initiative, sending expeditions to every location the Keeper had marked. 43 gardens had been found, each one containing treasures of knowledge and technology. Some held weapons, strange devices that operated on principles human scientists were still struggling to understand. Others contained biological secrets, ways of engineering life that made the old genetic technology look like children's toys. Kevin had built the Watch, a network of sensors and stations spread across human space, constantly scanning for any sign of the silence. So far they had found nothing. The darkness was still far away, moving slowly through distant stars. But it was coming. Always coming. Daniel had trained a new generation of soldiers. Men and women prepared to fight against something that had never been defeated. They practiced with alien weapons, learned alien tactics, prepared for a war that their grandchildren might have to fight. Daniel himself had died 10 years ago, passing peacefully in his sleep, but his legacy lived on in the millions who wore the uniform of the Human Defense Force, and Lisa had become something she never expected to be, a symbol. The woman who had found the first garden, the voice that had warned humanity. The leader who had united them in the face of impossible odds. She did not want to be a symbol. She wanted to be a soldier, a scientist, someone who did real work. But she understood that symbols mattered. When people were afraid, they needed something to believe in. And if that something was her, then she would bear that burden. On the 50th anniversary of her discovery, Lisa returned to the garden. The starward hope had been retired long ago, replaced by ships that could cross the galaxy in weeks rather than months. Lisa traveled on one of these new vessels, watching the stars blur past her window. Thinking about all the years that had passed, Kepler-44 to be looked the same as it always had, a gray-brown world orbiting a distant sun. But as Lisa descended toward the garden, she felt something different in the air. A sense of completion, perhaps. Or maybe just the weight of time? The tunnel was unchanged. The garden was unchanged. But when Lisa entered the temple at its heart, she found the keeper waiting for her, and the keeper was dying. She lay on a bed of soft grass, her porcelain skin cracked with age, her violet eyes dim. The column of light that had sustained her for so long was flickering, fading. The garden around her was showing signs of decay, flowers wilting, and trees losing their silver leaves. "You came," the keeper whispered as Lisa knelt beside her. "I hoped you would, of course I came." Lisa took the keeper's hand, feeling how thin and fragile it had become. "What's happening to you?" "I am ending. I have held on for too long already. The energy that sustained me is finally running out." The keeper smiled weakly. "But that is all right. I have done what I needed to do. I have passed on what remains of my people. The rest is up to you." Lisa felt tears streaming down her face. She had cried more in the past 50 years than in all her life before the garden. Somehow that seemed right. "We're not ready," she said. "We've done so much, but it's not enough. The silence is still coming, and we don't know if we can stop it. No one ever knows." The keeper's grip tightened on Lisa's hand. "My people did not know. Every species that ever faced the darkness did not know. That is the nature of existence. We do what we can, and we hope it is enough." She looked up at Lisa with eyes that held millions of years of memory. "But I believe in you. I believe in humanity. You have done things in 50 years that my people did not do in 10,000. You have united. You have prepared. You have refused to give up, even when the odds seemed impossible. It is not weakness. That is strength. The greatest strength the galaxy has ever seen." Lisa bent down and pressed her forehead to the keeper's. "I wish you could see what we become," she whispered. "I wish you could be there when we face the silence. I will be there. In the knowledge I have given you, in the gardens that carry my people's memory, in every human who looks up at the stars and refuses to be afraid." The keeper's voice was growing fainter. "We do not truly die until we are forgotten. And you have promised to remember. Always. We will always remember." The keeper smiled one last time. Then her eyes closed, and her hand went limp in Lisa's grip, and the light in the temple went dark. Lisa stayed there for a long time, holding the hand of the being who had given humanity a chance at survival. Around her, the garden began to change. The alien plants faded, replaced slowly by something new. Grass that was green instead of silver. Flowers that bloomed in colors human eyes recognized. Trees with bark that was brown and rough and real. The garden was becoming human, the keeper's final gift, transforming her legacy into something that belonged to the species she had chosen to trust. When Lisa finally emerged from the tunnel, she found the planet changed as well. Thin clouds were forming in the atmosphere. Ice was melting at the poles. In 1,000 years, perhaps less, This world would be able to support human life. Another gift. Another seed planted by a being who had waited millions of years in the hope that someone would come. Lisa looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the silence was moving. Somewhere out there, the darkness was watching. In 150 years, give or take, it would arrive in human space. And then the real test would begin. But humanity would be ready. They had the knowledge of the gardens. They had ships and weapons and technology that their ancestors could never have imagined. And more importantly, they had something the Keeper's people had lacked. They had each other. Lisa Grant died 20 years later, at the age of 112. By then, she was the most famous human who had ever lived. Her name known on every world, her story taught to every child. But in her final moments, she did not think about fame or legacy or the great events she had set in motion. She thought about a garden beneath a dead world. She thought about a being with violet eyes and a smile full of hope. She thought about the promise she had made to remember, and the knowledge that it would be kept long after she was gone. The silence was coming. The darkness was approaching. But when it arrived, it would find something it had never encountered before. It would find a species that had learned from the mistakes of all who came before. A species that stood together, united, prepared. A species that had been given the whispers of a forgotten garden and had answered with a voice that would shake the stars. Humanity was waiting, and they were not afraid. The final chapter of the story was yet to be written. But whatever ending came, it would be one that humanity chose for itself, and that, in the end, was all anyone could ask for.